Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today on the channel, we're going to be talking about string trimmers, or as some of us like to call them, weed eaters. But especially in this video, we're going to be talking about battery power string trimmers. Battery power string trimmers have come a long way, especially since battery technology has advanced, and it seems like a lot of manufacturers are putting out battery power tools, including string trimmers. So we're going to take some of the most popular ones on the market and put them in the head-to-head and see who comes out on top. So stay tuned. Alright guys, so let's talk about some of the format of this video. In this video, we're going to probably go over some of the key aspects, go over some specs, give it some quick ratings, and then see what comes out on top. And then at the end of the video, I'll show you guys some actual footage of them being used. And then we'll go ahead and say a lot of this is going to be subjective to my opinion. And on that front, this video is not sponsored by anyone or any brand or manufacturer or anyone. This is just opinions of my own that I've gathered from using these string trimmers for at least a few weeks, if not a few months, or for a few years. So this is very subjective to my opinion, but let's get into it. So in the string trimmer lineup, we have compared several different brands. But we mainly focus on the ones that were in the tool manufacturing industry, or at least in the power tool industry. So we compared a few string trimmers from DeWalt, Milwaukee, Makita, and the most popular one on the market seems to be EGO. So in the lineup, we have the DeWalt FlexVolt string trimmer. This is a 60 volt max brushless string trimmer, model number DCST970. We also compared the Milwaukee M18 fuel string trimmer, model number 2725. This is the first generation string trimmer. I will note and say we did compare this one in max configuration mode. What I mean by that is we use some good quality 0.095 line, and then we also use the Milwaukee M18 12 amp hour high output battery. This is pretty much the best or highest performance battery Milwaukee makes. So in this configuration, it's pretty much going to be the highest performance configuration you're going to get out of this tool. Okay, and then we also use the Makita LXT X2 36 volt string trimmer, model number XUX01ZM5. This is the model with the power head and then the string trimmer attachment. They do make other ones, but this is the one I had access to, so this is the one that we're going to be talking about in this video. And then finally, the most popular one on the market seems to be the EGO string trimmer ST1500SF. All right. So before we get into some of the ratings, let's talk about some of the key aspects or key points. So when it comes to these string trimmers, there seems to be two types of designs, okay? The design with the motor being at the back of the unit, and the design with the motor being at the head of the unit, meaning down low where a string is actually spinning. So let's talk about some of the pros and cons. As we saw in some of the first video, when the motor is at the rear of the unit, there has to be a drive shaft that goes down the pole. That's okay, just the baby in the background. There does have to be a drive shaft going down the pole that transfers through a gearbox to the head of the unit. And because of that, there is extra vibrations introduced from the unit to the user of that drive shaft spinning. And when you get a long drive shaft like that, at that diameter, it's almost impossible to get spinning perfectly with no vibration. So there is a little bit of that. But the benefit to that one is, because of that configuration or that drive shaft or the mass that's in motion behind the head, when it hits an object, it is a lot easier for that one to maintain the same head speed it was currently at. All right, but the downside to that is the vibration, and also most of the weight is going to be at the back of that unit. Yes, tool companies can do things to try to balance it or make it feel more balanced, but you'll quote unquote see that most of the weight is at the back of the unit. Okay, and then so the other design, let's talk about the motor being at the head. With the motor being at the head, it's a lot easier for the string trimmer to be smoother because there is less mass of moving parts and less connectors or connections, whether that's a gearbox or whatever it is. The con of that is primarily because there is less mass in motion. When it comes upon an object that applies a different force acted upon it, pretty much it does not have as much force behind it to move, so it does slow down the head quite a bit, some more than others. So those are mainly two types of designs when it comes to these string trimmers. without further ado, let's get into some of the ratings. When we're getting into ratings, I'm going to say we're not going to cover every single spec because anybody can look them up or whatnot. We're going to cover some of the specs that I deem are pretty important from a user who likes to use string trimmers. And like I said, most of these are going to be subjective, a lot of them to my own opinion. So in this rating, a 5 is a good score, probably the best score, and a 1 is a low score. All right, guys, let's talk about voltages. This one, it was not really weighted into the final outcome, but in the lineup, we have string trimmers ranging from 18 volts to 60 volts. It's really 56 or 54 volt, depending on how you look at it. But the EGO is a 56, and the DeWalt is claimed as a 60 volt max, which we all know is either a 54 volt nominal voltage or a 54 volts under load or 56 volts. So pretty much they're in the same class. The Makita is a 36 volt, which means it takes 2 LXT batteries to make 36 volts, and the Milwaukee is an 18 volt model. And we'll get into more of the power stuff later. But let's talk about the first main category. And a head speed, a lot of you guys will probably notice when coming from gas string trimmers is you got a lot of head speed on high-end gas string trimmers. And a lot of us who use string trimmers a lot enjoy that head speed. For me, in the category of head speed, first place was Makita. Now on the Makita brushless motor unit, it says it does an output of 9,700 RPMs, no load speed. But that has to get transferred into the gearbox and spin the head. We don't know what that gear ratio is because it doesn't seem to be defined anywhere, but it is clearly obvious that the Makita in the case has the highest or the fastest head speed. I'll throw some clips up of that later. Followed up in second place, runner-up, is DeWalt 6,600 RPMs, and then the Milwaukee and the EGO both come in third place at 5,800 RPMs. So if you've used a high-end gas string trimmer with a really fast head speed, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about, and we miss that when you move over to electric. But Makita kind of tries to bridge that gap there. Power. All right, so don't fall into marketing hype, especially with the voltages and stuff, and manufacturers trying to say, oh, 56 volt or 80 volts or whatever it is, the most voltage. I'm trying to market saying that the most voltage is the better tool, which is not always true. But in the power category, look at the end of the video, it's pretty much the power you feel behind the string trimmer when you're using it. Very subjective, but wait to watch the footage at the end of the video and you'll see what I mean. But in first place, we gave this one to DeWalt. DeWalt seems to have a pretty good head speed and has the ability to keep it up, and when it goes down, it's able to ramp it up very quickly, okay? The Makita comes in second place, and then third place comes Milwaukee, and in last place comes the EGO, okay? Let's move on to vibrations. So vibrations is pretty important. Some of you guys know safety is probably number one, and you don't want to use a tool that's going to be a detriment to your health. But even OSHA warns against long-term exposure to vibration can lead to nerve damage or whatnot. So anyways, vibration is relatively important to me, so I did include it in the category. But the smoothest string trimmer in this category was obviously the EGO. It's a direct drive, meaning the head is directly connected to shafted motor, which makes it the reason for one of the smoothest string trimmers. So we gave that one first place. Second place, DeWalt. Third place is tied between Makita and Milwaukee. All right. Let's move on to torque. So torque, this is also very subjective, but pretty much what happened was we measured how much does the head speed slow down when encountering an object or something to cut. This is not exactly 100% science or true here, but this is pretty much how we're going to measure this. So the clear winner in this category was Milwaukee. Milwaukee is able to keep that head speed, although not the fastest head speed, is able to keep that head speed pretty stable cutting through some thick brush. So we gave that one to Milwaukee. Second place followed up by DeWalt, third place Makita, and last place EGO. So with the Makita, I will say there is 3 settings. The Makita has a variable speed trigger, but it does have 3 settings on the string trimmer. Most of these, the DeWalt, Milwaukee, and the Makita, DeWalt and Milwaukee both have a high and low setting, but the Makita has a 3-speed setting. So when you're using it on speed 3 and it runs up against something that's harder to cut, it'll drop down to speed 2. Not because the unit is dropping it down to speed 2, but primarily because the force or the opposing force on the string trimmer head is making it drop down speed 2, but it will ramp it up quickly as quickly as it can back to speed 3. So that's pretty something important to know. But if you're doing just regular string trimming, like around the house, like the edge of the house or the fence or a pole, mailbox, whatever it is pretty simple to keep the head speed up. This is only in the case of thick brush, okay? So we'll talk about that. One thing I will also mention here in the power and torque category was Milwaukee has done a fantastic job making this unit as powerful as it is. Now, it probably takes a lot of amps pulled from that battery to do this, but considering this is an 18-volt tool and is easily able to keep up with the EGO, if not be better than the EGO, they've done a fantastic job. But anyways, moving on. We'll move on to price. So price, this is very subjective to deals or wherever you can find it, but I'm gonna talk mainly about authorized resellers that you can get this stuff from. So mainly on sales and stuff, I've posted also a few deals where you can get the EGO string trimmer for, I think it was 160 bucks with the kit. That included 2.5 amp hour battery, I think, and the charger and the whole kit. I think that was about 160. So that's a very good price for what you're getting. So the first place comes the EGO, second place DeWalt, because you can pick up the FlexVolt string trimmer kit for roughly around $240, $260, depending on where you get it from, with the Makita and the Milwaukee both coming in third place. Both of the Makita and the Milwaukee seem to average at least $330, depending on where you get it from. So that's pretty important to keep in mind. Long-term maintenance. In this category, we took into account two areas. One area was replacement of the string trimmer head, and this is important primarily because heads will wear out. Most of you guys who use string trimmers a lot know that these heads wear out and they need to be replaced. And sometimes you get a string trimmer and you don't like the head and you just want to replace it. So that's pretty important. And any maintenance that needs to be done, whether that's replacing the brushes or adding grease or whatever it is, all of these I think are brushless, so you don't need to worry about that. So mainly in this case 2, which is head speed and replace gearbox maintenance. So in first place, we gave this one to DeWalt, and the reason we gave this one to DeWalt is because the head, you can easily replace the head, show another video with pretty good aftermarket heads, and you don't need to do any gearbox maintenance, okay? There's a small annoyance with blowing it off the air vents every now and then, but that's not too big of a deal. Second place is tied between Makita and Milwaukee. Both of these you can use aftermarket heads. The one that I bought from a friend, the Makita, I think they replaced with the T25 head, so it's pretty simple. But you can use aftermarket heads, but you do have to maintenance the gearbox every, I think it was like 30 or 50 hours or something like that. You have to not take it apart, but you take the screw off, make sure everything's good, and add some high temperature grease inside there, and gearbox grease. So there's a little bit of annoyance. And then in fourth place, we put the EGO. And the main reason I put the EGO in last place or third place, I know I said fourth, but in third place, is because I did not find a way to replace the head with any aftermarket head. So if that head fails, you have to replace it with an EGO head, and personally I do not like that EGO head, and maybe because the way it's designed with the fins for the cooling or whatever it was, there's no direct way to replace that without any modification to the string trimmer. Okay, so that's why we put the EGO in third place on that front. And the head is probably one of the important categories of a string trimmer. And most of you guys who use string trimmers a lot will know what I mean. All right, so take that in mind, and we'll take next category. Platform. All right, in the platform category, this wasn't too important to me, primarily because I'm in most of these platforms, and most of you guys who are in semi-serious DIY or construction or in the professional industry, you're most likely not locked to any one platform. I know every once in a while you run into people who are only using one platform, but we're not going to get into that today. But platform-wise, first place was tied between DeWalt and Makita, mainly because They both have all of the outdoor power equipment tools for lawn care maintenance, which means lawn mowers, hedgers, blowers, all that stuff. And they also have the power tool lineup that they have. Makita has one of the biggest ones, and they tout that everywhere. So those two are in first place. Second, followed up by Milwaukee, primarily because Milwaukee has most of that, but it does not have a mower. Yes, it is very difficult, if not impossible, to make a pretty good 18-volt mower. All right, so I'm gonna put that out there. And if they're gonna go make one, pretty gonna say it needs to take at least 2 of those batteries, and I'm not sure how willing they are to budge on that one. But anyways, and in third place, we're gonna give to EGO, primarily because EGO has pretty good outdoor power equipment, but they do not have power tools in terms of like drills, impacts, circular saws, recips, and all that stuff. So take it for what it will and take it with a grain of salt. That covers most of the categories that we evaluated, but I do want to mention a few things or honorable mentions. So most of these have pretty much all the same features, but the Makita has a few extra features, meaning, like I said, it has a 3-speed setting, also with the variable speed trigger, but it also has a reverse button that allows you to reverse for a few seconds. Like if you got something wound around it, whether that was like house wrap, rope, big tall weed, whatever it is, that comes in use every now and then once you run into something like that. And also, unlike something I've never seen on a string trimmer, was it has an electric brake. So when you let go of the trigger, it breaks the string trimmer head really fast, and considering how fast it was going, it's actually very impressive. So it's a pretty good safety feature, and take it for what it will, but I didn't take it into the ranking of the string trimmers. So we can go and talk about some of the results here, but like I said, before we go into the results, I want to say all of these string trimmers are pretty good. They do what they're designed for. If you're doing normal string trimming, like string trimming after grass, around flower beds, house, poles, or whatever, you're going to be fine. All of these are going to serve you perfectly fine. And if you're going to go out and get one, I would recommend get whichever one that you have the most batteries for, or the battery platform for, okay? Because they're all good. All right, so with that being said, let's get into some of the results. All right, let's talk about the results, and we did weight it. 20% of the category or the weight goes to head speed, another 20% goes to power, another 20% goes to torque, another 20% goes to maintenance, 10% goes to vibration, 5% to price, and 5% to platform. So that's just my opinion. Why did I weight it that way? Head speed, I really enjoy that high head speed, especially if you're coming from a really high-end gas trimmer. You know what I'm talking about. Vibrations, it's important, but not gonna deter me in terms of the significance of how much it is, but it did 10%, all right? So power, one of the most important things when you're buying a string trimmer is you want that good, reliable power, okay? So power and torque, I mean, those make up about 40%. So you guys know if you're buying good tools or whatnot, the power is actually very important to us, especially if you're doing a lot of thick brush cutting. Maintenance, which means mainly the head, replaceable head. And if you cannot replace a head on a string trimmer, that string trimmer is pretty, I'm gonna go out and say it, not very good, primarily because most of the commercial guys out there, you know, you guys are only using either the speed feed head by Echo or Shindaiwa or whoever, or the Husqvarna heads, and we like those heads, okay? So that's pretty important. But anyways, that's what comes out. But best overall category with 0.445 points ends up going to first place is DeWalt. All right, DeWalt's first place at 0.445 points. Second place followed up is Makita with a very respectable 0.39 points. Then Milwaukee, which is 0.365. And then in last place was 0.29 EGO. All right, and mainly a lot of that had to come down to power, torque, head speed. So take that for what it will. Personally, I'm in most of the platform, like I said, so it's not that crucial to me. I really enjoy using the DeWalt, but if you're not doing a lot of thick brush cutting, if you're not cutting a lot of thick grass all the time, I would really urge you to consider the Milwaukee or the Makita, primarily because it has that really, really fast head speed, and I really enjoy that. Also, it is a powered head unit, so you can put on different attachments and stuff, but I know Milwaukee makes that stuff too, but going back to what I said earlier, Milwaukee has done a great job pulling that much power out of an 18-volt platform and able to keep that torque up. So like I said, get whatever string trimmer that you're in the platform with in terms of battery platform. But out of this head-to-head, I will give it to first place DeWalt, second place Makita, third place Milwaukee, fourth place EGO. So without further ado, watch the clips that I'm about to drop in this video, and keep in mind a lot of these clips is cutting through roughly about 1.5 foot to 2 feet weeds. I'm not sure what exactly weed this is, but if you know what it is, drop it in the comments and then we'll find out together. But this is pretty thick stuff. Normally I will not advise people to string trim this kind of stuff or get like a slasher mower and slash it down. But in this, for the purpose of this head-to-head, we try to find some thick brush that we could cut down and get into some situations where it might get into a thermal overload or put it in a really tough situation, and this is what happened. So without further ado, watch the clips. Alright guys, so thanks for watching the video. I hope this video helped you guys out. Like I said, this is my personal opinion. You'll be fine mostly with most of the string trimmers in this lineup, but some of them are just a little bit better than others. So let me know in the comments if you guys agree with the assessment or if you guys disagree with the assessment, or maybe you guys favor one over the other. Just love to hear from you guys. So just let me know. Leave it in the comments below. So hope this video has helped you guys out, and then we'll see you guys next time.